love radio, but I'm trying to just speak what I think are the real challenges that we have to face, not trying to sugarcoat them.
And that should tell you something because they're radio people too, and yet here they are moving headlong into the video space. Well, good afternoon, Las Vegas. Good morning by the time you might be reading this. I'm Paul Jacobs, Jacobs Media. My partners in crime, Fred Jacobs, Steve Newberry from Q, and Chris Brunt are joining me. We look a little more tired than yesterday because we spent, the last 8 hours getting 20,000 steps in here at CES. We're experiencing exhaustion, exhilaration, and yes, sore feet. But like every CES we've been to in the past 17 years, it's impossible to go anywhere here without bumping into something, learning something new, expanding your mind. I mean, it truly is remarkable. Uh, it did feel like there were more exhibitors than last year, except in Central Plaza. We didn't have the big Google house or Walmart house. But as you'll hear today, there's been some significant changes because CES never gets stale, never stands still. And who is displaying and who isn't displaying also tells a really strong story about the direction of technology. So let's start in. Jump ball for you guys overall. Just what were your top impressions from day one? Well, I'm going to kind of continue on the same theme that we started yesterday, which of course is the avalanche, the tsunami, however you want to weather describe it, of AI. But it has been fascinating to actually visit some brands that we used to know that have done some pretty significant pivoting as a result of what is going on in AI world. And Exhibit A is SoundHound AI, as it's now called. Now, don't confuse this with SoundCloud. That's a different company. SoundHound, you might remember, was sort of the number two music and artist identification thing, the Shazam. That was kind of their thing. Well, obviously, thanks to people like Steve Newberry and Q, we don't wonder a whole lot anymore about what's the name of the artist or the song that we're listening to because it's beautifully displayed on the screen. So SoundHound obviously reached the point where they realized we don't have a great business model here. We need to pivot. And they have heavily into AI. They talk about now how their platform is agentic AI. Agentic is also another buzzword that would make for a great drinking game out here as well. But it reminds Paul and I, we actually looked at it together, of the old GM marketplace that they tried to develop by integrating advertisers that you might visit on the way to the car. And it is an interesting platform. They're white labeling it out at this point, so any OEM can participate if they want to. Basically, three tent poles to what they're doing. And the way they researched it, and they said they did, by the way, they're sending us their study, so we'll take a look at it, was to actually look at what people most often do when they're in the car. And it turns out that has to do with food, making reservations, and parking. And so they've already got partnerships in place with Open Table, so you can actually, while you're in the car, do all of that kind of business that you want to do. They've got a deal with Parkopedia, so you can actually reserve or find a parking space. Now, some of you are thinking, well, I could just do that on my phone in the car anyway. And you could, but this is all integrated. So it's an interesting platform. There are discount possibilities. And it's really wide open at this point. The difference is, unlike the old GM marketplace where you would just buy gas or food or whatever, obviously the AI begins to know that, hey, you went out to Carmine's last week and you had a great meal. Would you like to make a reservation there? That type of thing, that type of connection. So you've heard us use that phrase before, an AI companion. That's really what SoundCloud AI is trying to create in the car. So it's kind of cool to actually watch how they have sort of zigged and zagged from what they used to be to where they're trying to be now.
But they have created the foundation of an AI agent in the passenger seat. Literally something you can talk to.
And as it learns, begins to tee up for you information, ideas, content, solutions, whatever. It's
Well,
still a
you know,
little,
you're right, and that is a familiar theme, not just with SoundHound, obviously, but with a lot of these AI companies. And you know, it's interesting. We have always thought about radio as being the companion medium, but that's one of the things that AI is really trying to kind of worm its way into now, is to be that same thing with a much better memory than radio. Because as we talked about yesterday, AI remembers everything you did and every meal you ate and every tank of gas you bought and every parking space that you occupied. So it's a really interesting set of circumstances and possibilities here.
Chris, you're the AI expert in the family. What was your take on what they're doing?
I'm seeing the same thing happen, not only with SoundHound, but another brand that you'll recognize, Napster. That is now an AI company where not only do they have a concierge where you put it up on this flat screen in a lobby, but they also have a second pillar to their business model, which is these AI agents, which will create songs for you. And they've shut down the music streaming service, which was an evolution from the music sharing service. The other thing that was really notable was the incredible leap forward robotics has made and AI making that happen. There were two instances that I found. One company was called Zeroth, and they're ready to go to market this year with a couple different robots. One of them is the M1. It retails for $2,400, and its use case is to be a companion for seniors and those people that can't get out of their house, not only for companionship, but also as an assistant for the loved ones who aren't living with that person, so they can make sure that this senior is taking his or her medicines, or can read a script, or can assist with the remote control or the TV, or all of those things that may be problems. The other one is TCL. You may have seen TCL in your local Costco. They've come out with Amy, AI ME, and this is a robot. They call it the world's first modular AI companion robot. It's about 1.5 feet tall, and it's meant to be cute and to be used for emotional support for kids.
Steve.
Well, I spent today, I mentioned yesterday that I kind of have a tendency to come out and get all excited about something. And then as I sober up was my word yesterday. So last night after we did this, and as I reflected on AI, there are a couple of things that really I started to observe today. Number one, AI is just as real today as it was yesterday. So I'm not backing off of that. It is real. It's what's tying a lot of these products and a lot of these items together that we've heard about. But I think as it impacts radio, it's not going to be in vehicle, because there are a lot of cars on the road that are not going to have AI capability in them for many years. They're going to run their life cycle. But this is going to start being seen on new models, I think, much faster than we would have expected a couple of years ago. And I think my admonition to the radio industry is not as emergency urgent today as I might have thought it was yesterday, but it is urgent. And it is something that we need to start planning for. I had a very interesting conversation with a broadcaster, a very good friend, who said that, well, he saw the podcast from this morning and, I threw radio under the bus. And listen, if anybody knows me, they know I love radio. I am a radio junkie through and through. And it kind of took me aback. And I said, well, I love radio, but I'm trying to just speak what I think are the real challenges that we have to face, not trying to sugarcoat them. And I guess I would modify that and say my comments out here are not about throwing radio under the bus, but saying to radio, there is a bus coming down the road. Either get on the bus or get out of the way, but don't get hit by the bus. That's what I guess I'm trying to say. So today, my walking through the floor, looking at this, had a different feel to it. I had an opportunity to talk with broadcasters internationally and domestically that are all trying to figure out what's the cost of data delivery going to be in these vehicles. What's going to be if we do enhanced video services? Who's going to pay for that? Are the automakers going to pay for it? No. Are the broadcasters going to pay for it? I don't know. But I think that people are trying to get the business model wrapped around in their head. But it all comes down to the point that it's going to begin with you've got video, you've got audio, but how you interact, how you control, how you access is going to be a learned process from what you like as a consumer, what you enjoyed, what you rejected, and we just have to be prepared as an industry that that legacy way that we have marketed and that we have attracted listeners is going to change because that companion that you were just talking about that's sitting in the seat beside you, think of it as your best friend that's kind of controlling the radio. Oh, let's listen to this, or controlling the music or the entertainment source, not even the radio. So that was my, I don't think the roof's going to fall on the house tomorrow, but the world, it is a changing, folks, and I want the industry to be prepared for that. I've got some other thoughts on video that I'll come back to in a few minutes, but we can circle back.
And if you don't want to get hit by the bus out here at CES, I guarantee you it's an autonomous bus. And we are seeing a real upsurge of autonomous vehicles here. AI does have a lot to do with it. Radio's transformation. So Fred and I ended our day wandering around the largest exhibit here at CES. I mean, you cannot believe how massive their space is. And they had this glass enclosed radio studio with a lighted on air sign. And of course, we stopped in our tracks because you don't really see a lot of radio out here. And last year, Chris saw Will I Am here. He gave a talk, and he is as passionate about radio as anyone. He sees radio through a different lens, and his partnership with LG has continued, and they've created this new radio approach. They call it FYI. By the way, radio in their logo, the AI of radio is a different color, expanded. So you can imagine that this whole thing is an interactive talk infotainment experience with live as well as AI hosts. And it is really pretty cool. The other thing, and I'm going to have Fred, give you his take on this, was the rep who was showing it, Julie Pilat. She's a radio vet. She's worked at radio stations throughout the West. She worked at the Edge in Phoenix when we signed on. And she took all this radio knowledge she has to Will I Am and helped create this enhanced radio experience. One thing I will tell you, though, Julie is as passionate about radio as Steve Newberry. I mean, as soon as she figured out that we were a bunch of radio guys, she was bouncing off the walls, and we were doing the conversation all of you have had over and over. Oh, do you know this person? And wasn't that a crazy station? So it was really kind of a cool thing. But there's stuff going on here we better pay attention to. So Fred, what was your take of this thing?
Well, we've talked about this a lot in the blog over the years, but clearly radio as a concept is still a passion play for so many people, even if they've moved on to Spotify or other things. We were even talking about the radio station in Stranger Things, the Netflix show, and Chris bumped into an actual Lego model yesterday of WSQK, the Squawk, I believe the radio station is called. But yes, I mean, there's a lot of people who have a tremendous amount of passion for the fundamentals of radio. I think where things get a little bit confusing is when we try to define what radio actually is. But yeah, Will I Am is definitely a fan. He wants to allow regular folks to be able to curate and create their own kind of radio, and he's using AI as a tool to be able to do that. Chris, you saw this last year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hang around because we're doing this. But did you have any impressions from last year? It looks like he's just sort of continuing on in the same basic vein of kind of opening up radio to the masses, is kind of the way I would put it.
Yeah, he's really taking kind of what is kind of the heart and soul of radio and personalizing it on a user by user basis. And he's really taking an approach which encompasses multiple types of demographics and ethnicities to make sure that regardless of whose station it is, that, they're being served by their custom feed and with up-to-date information as well.
And you buy merch and we were there and, Julie asked the AI host a question about me and Fred. And yeah, it was additional layers of depth of what radio, as we've come to know, could go. So you're probably going to hear more and more about this from us as the days and weeks go on. Steve, thoughts about video before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, and I think it has to do with this conversation they had. They said, "Well, if you were king for a day, what would you do? What would you do for radio?" And I said, "Be companion connected, deliver on what you promise. Don't say you're doing this stuff and not deliver." So I think radio's real objective from a programming standpoint is creating those sticky points that we provide that you can't get from AI, from a playlist that's done by Spotify or an algorithm or something else. What can we deliver? And I think an important part of that as we move forward is not just audio, but video. Things that people come to the radio station to say, we've all been talking about the impact of video podcast and why that seems to be something that people are really attracted to. But if you are doing something in your community, video about that people can access, and it's going to be accessible in cars. Video is going to be a real component in cars. And, that's right, looking over Fred's shoulder, but you're going to be able to, people say, well, distracted drivers. It's for passengers and backseat at this point in time. But at some point in time, I do believe autonomous cars are going to arrive and it's going to happen. So if I were king for the day, for the radio industry, after a day and a half of looking this, I would say, take your product, take your programming and thinking about how you deliver on the promises and how you deliver things that are not easily replicated by some algorithm. Instead, create really valuable, great companion type programming on your radio station that pulls people into your product, video and audio.
Yeah, that graphic behind me is a bit of a tease for tomorrow. Paul and I wandered way off into the Silver Lot. If you know the LVCC, you know how far away that is. It's over by South Hall, which is not one of the more well-traveled halls here at CES, but for some reason BMW likes it out there. This is, I think, at least the third year that they've been headquartered out there. So, yeah, you're looking at the dashboard screen of the BMW iX3. And, as Steve said, I mean, it doesn't even need to be an autonomous car. I mean, this is an EV. And so, you got 40 minutes to kill as you're powering your car back up. You got to watch something. So you may as well watch the tech survey wrap up, right? Which you could do if you really had nothing else to do. But basically, the choices were very Netflix-like. I mean, it was just an incredible screen of possibilities and content. And yeah, I mean, this whole idea of your car becoming a video theater. And I will add, when we spent some time with Xperi earlier in the day, that continues to be one of their emphases as well. It's not just the auto stage, which is, again, a beautiful platform for broadcast radio, but they continue to show video. That is a big thing for the Xperi folks, and that should tell you something because they're radio people too, and yet here they are moving headlong into the video space.